Do 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 do. Yeah, ba do ba do 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 ba do ba do. Da ba dee do do ba do ba dee do. Yeah, ba da ba dum do. Hey, Cody. Yeah. Just just was looking around at some of the news and just got so annoyed again. Dirt Man Band, Drunken Ken and Terry Folds, Brangley, Virgil, Stormstar, Fluffy, CIA, Wolverine, AZN, Ninja, Genko. Got the bat signal, did ya? Nice, Genko. About time. Josh got a notification. Wow. Explosion, CX? Not in this class. Warrior in Jeans. Nolan. Nolan says study for imaging final or watch Baldman? Oh, easy one. Watch imaging final. No, I don't watch Baldman. I see my donations from before. Big Baldman calls. Zerzal says, "Oh yeah, who's starting off cheap jump scares? Starting off as stream boss." Ooh, Dolphin says, "What's up, Curtis? I'm currently typing this from toilet after eating some bad chicken." Ah, that's not a fun time. AZN says, Afghan, I believe I can touch the sky. Just fly away, yeah. uh, guys, I just watched, and you guys who are in here regularly and having political conversations with us know I've said, regardless of who I vote for, I have no problem with calling out anybody for anything. And I've said all along that it's Trump's ego and unwillingness because of that ego to ever admit he was wrong, which is why he lost the election. I think had he owned up to the mistakes he made at the beginning of the whole pandemic, I think he would have won. I mean, just my opinion. I think that would have swung the electorate. And now this administration is doing the same goddamn thing. I I I watched, and I keep saying they can't shock me anymore, and I keep being proven incorrect because I just watched Secretary of State Blinken, a tape of it on CNN with Jake Tapper, which surprised me that Tapper would even take them to task, talking completely out of his ass about the whole Afghan situation to try and be able to not accept any responsibility. The things he said were mind-numbingly moronic. Rather than just, as a politician at any level, rather than just accept that sometimes you do the wrong thing, rather than coming out and saying, yeah, we might not have handled the withdrawal well, but we're doing everything we can to fix it, at least that way people move on. You're going to take heat from it for a while, but people are like, okay, let's see what they're doing. He's denying that they did anything wrong. Now, I'm sure all of you are aware, we withdrew all our troops from Afghanistan, just boom, like that. 2,500 troops. Immediately, the Taliban took back over. Now they run the country. They've gotten Kabul. They run the country. They did it in just hours. And they had the Secretary of State on. And when questioned about it, if they blew the withdrawal, he says, no, actually what it does is it shows that we are ready for any eventuality. And he's basing this on the fact that they withdrew 2,500 troops. When the Taliban took back over, we still have American citizens there. We have Afghan citizens that had assisted the Americans while we were there, which would target them for immediate death by the Taliban. You know, whether it's translators or whatever the case may be, all of them still there on the ground. So now we've sent 5,000 troops back in to try and secure everybody and get them out of there, and we still don't have everyone out. The Secretary of State is saying that what this proves is we're ready for any eventuality. We had these troops ready to go. That's the most moronic fucking thing I've ever heard. If you were ready for any eventuality, why didn't you move the people out first before you withdrew the troops? Why didn't you take all the Americans and all the people who had worked with the Americans and were in danger? Why would you not remove them, then remove the troops? Instead of taking the troops out, letting the Taliban take over, and then hoping you could get back in and extract them. And he would not admit to, okay, maybe it was a bad call. Maybe we shouldn't we probably should have done it that way. You're right. No, that just proves we're ready for any eventuality. And when pressed on it, he kept saying, well, what were we going to do? We're going to stay in Afghanistan forever? And even Tapper kept saying, listen, dude, you're changing the subject. The issue isn't whether we should stay in Afghanistan forever. The issue is, did you handle the withdrawal properly? Well, I don't know. What are we going to do? We can't stay in there forever? It's like, you fucking morons. Sometimes you do things wrong, and sometimes you got to nut up and take the bullet for it. This is going to drag you down. This is what makes you look like an idiot. It just boggles my mind. I can't wait to see. Biden certainly should have talked to the nation by now about what happened, but they're saying he's going to do it within a few days. If he does anything but take responsibility, if he tries to lay this off on whatever, on bad information, I'm sure it'll be on Trump, whatever the case may be, he's got to go the same way Trump had to go for the same reasons, because they're idiots. AZN said, did anyone else see those Afghan dudes fall from the plane? That's messed up. Funny though, I believe I can fly. We can touch the sky. Yeah, they were comparing it to World War Z, AZN online, because the people were, as he's making reference to, were literally climbing onto the airplanes trying to get the hell out of there before the Taliban takes over in full force. Because you would think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to pay the ultimate price for the Taliban reclaiming all of Afghanistan. Zurzel said, deployed friends said it was also last minute, somewhere on or acting prior orders even into it. Whole thing is a shot show. We left people to die. We absolutely did. It's horrible. It was a terrible, terrible tactical mistake. And now they're going to exacerbate it by pretending it wasn't a mistake. That's what gets me as much as anything else. No politicians at a national level, nobody, it seems, can ever just say, ooh, this is awful. I fucked up. I made a mistake. We're doing, now this is what we're doing to correct it. Nope. It's going to be, no, we were ready for any eventuality. What do you mean? It shows our readiness. It shows your readiness that you left Americans and American sympathizers directly in the path of the Taliban. That shows your readiness. And this is the Secretary of State. What a fucking moron. Philip says Vietnam too. Yeah. Afghan boogaloo. Don't those idiots know you're supposed to detonate any material to deny it to the enemy? That got me too. And don't give me any crap about wasting taxpayers' money. Now is not the time. No, and you're 100% right, Philip. We left all kinds of equipment and weaponry behind, and now it's in the hands of the Taliban. And it's not a waste of money, because the reason they do typically not leave it behind, they usually blow it all up, so it's of no use to anyone else. The reason they leave it behind is it's actually cheaper to just destroy it than it is to ship it all back again. That's always been the philosophy anyway in those cases. Whether it's true or not, I don't know, but that's what they've always said. But you don't leave it in working condition on the ground for the enemy to take it. And the administration cannot say that they had no idea something like this could happen, because, I mean, the internet is forever, and you can go back just a couple weeks and see all over the internet where people were saying, ooh, this isn't a good idea. You can't just pull out. The Afghan army will never be strong enough to stand up to the Taliban, because it's basically the American presence there that gave them backbone. So it wasn't a surprise to an awful lot of people. Stormstar says, politician, it was the opposing party's fault. Right. Opposing party, no, it was theirs. People, actually, it was both parties. It shows we're a great country, only positive. It's amazing, Stormstar. And that's why I led with what I did about Trump doing the exact same thing. The egos on these people are just stunning. Never, ever take responsibility when you fuck up. Mr. Croissant has a quote here. The chaos at Kabul airport was the dizzying final act of a lightning Taliban offensive that saw militants seize the last of the remaining cities under government control, culminating at the capital. And again, well, yeah, obviously it was stupid. I mean, I'm not as up on world affairs as I should be, and I will admit, even I thought when they said they were just pulling all the troops out, it's like, wow, really? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I predicted that Taliban would take over in a week. I didn't know it was going to be that severe. But we do know that just from things that have been said over the years, that the Afghan army was by nobody's standards overly functional. Chrome says he killed Trump's deal by pushing the withdrawal back. What the hell did they do with all that extra time besides give the Taliban extra propaganda and push the local warlords into their hands, right? And that's the thing, Chrome. Like I say, it was there. There were so many people all over the place saying, no, 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 no. You can't just pull people out. You know, to do a withdrawal, you have to do it strategically, tactically. You can't just cold turkey it. And the problem is, Biden is on tape a month ago being asked specifically about that and saying exactly what happened would not happen. I mean, it was on a recorded press conference. So when he does decide to talk to people, this irritates me too with this administration. What is the deal with you have something go on like this and going into hiding? You're not going to explain what's going on or anything? Well, he'll get to it in a few days. Zurzul says a friend's father that is higher in military command was trying to pitch pulling a few from the 60K garrisoned in Japan to reinforce an Afghan until U.S. citizens' Afghan translators were pulled. Got dismissed. A waste of troops. Oh my gosh. Excuse me, guys. My eye is itching. This is just horrific. I mean, how many people are going to be left there to die? I would imagine they'll do okay in getting out all the American citizens, but as we say, these translators and anybody that worked with the American government while they were there, they're going to be targeted for death. I was just reading an article about one of the first female mayors in Afghanistan saying, this is basically it, they're going to kill me. AZN says, go to Afghanistan live map. I'm nervous if the Taliban and other terrorists getting hands on fighter planes and search their weapons. Dangerous. Absolutely dangerous. Absolutely dangerous, AZN. No question about it. And it's easy for us as Americans to sit over here in America and go, ooh, that sucks, but it doesn't have an effect on us. You just put a terrorist group in charge of an entire nation. You've emboldened them like unbelievably. And now they're going through the prisons and releasing all the ISIS warriors as well. Yeah, this was monumentally bad. It really was. And again, what's as frustrating as any of it to me is you got your Secretary of State on national TV. Well, for whoever watches CNN, I didn't even see it there. I have to see it later when it's clipped out. Making a complete and total ass of himself in trying to pretend like they didn't fuck up. Chrome says, did you see the thing about the 4chan LARPer who's in Afghan just now? No. He's reporting on the situation on 4chan apparently. Really? Holy shit. The Ninja Genko says, dang, this is looking like as organized as a bag of doorknobs. Yes, and that's what I say. And it's not just to hammer on Biden. Because the thing is, it wasn't a good idea. But at the very least, there was Americans wanted American troops out of Afghanistan. He had that to lean back on. He could have at least admitted, or had his Secretary of State admit, yeah, we didn't handle that well. It was well-intentioned. We just wanted to get out of there. We didn't handle it well, but we're going to fix it. That's all you had to say. It really is. That's all you had to say, because that's the truth. You fucked it up. But you're sending in troops to fix it, get everybody out of there, do what you can. But instead it's like, no, we did the right thing. And this proves our readiness. Because we got 5,000 troops right back in there. Boom, like that. But you just pulled out 2,500. How is that a sign of readiness? You fucking moron. Yeah. Yeah, Zurzul says from Russia with Love Part 2. We gifted them toys. We sure as hell did. Oh, man. Jay said, just just passed over some article. People in Denmark saying we're leaving them to die. Yeah, I mean, anybody, anybody with connections to the West, seeing as a Western sympathizer, is likely going to die. And even if they're just suspected of it, the Taliban is not known for their elegant justice system. If they just suspect you of being someone unsavory, or if they just suspect you of living outside of Sharia law, they could kill you. Sir Blank, be honest, what did Biden do? Nothing. It's horrible, Sir Blank. And why are we not hearing from him? I mean, it's administration after administration. We know Trump was a complete clusterfuck when it came to things like this. We know he would never take responsibility when he made a mistake. Again, I think that's what cost him the election. And now we go into a whole new administration and still the same thing. Ego doesn't allow you to take responsibility. And Chrome says, oh, none of them will take responsibility. This is Biden's fall of Saigon. Yeah, it's exactly what it looks like. He destroyed Trump's withdrawal plan to take credit for ending the Afghan war. He gave the Taliban propaganda by reneging. It's horrible. I mean, good God. Chief Jumpscare says, beefy two-part post, please check. I feel politicians will never admit wrongdoing because doing so would be an automatic victory for the other team. They're so caught up in red versus blue, they ignore the country. I agree with that sentiment, Chief Jumpscare, but I disagree that it's the right move in even for how it appears, because at least, okay, this is obviously a fuck up. If you take ownership of it, I think you got a better chance of surviving it politically than you do denying that you fucked up. That's just my personal opinion. You just go out there and you make your Secretary of State look like a complete and utter moron in front of the whole world, saying, oh no, this shows how prepared we were. That was amazing. I don't think you're wrong. I think that's their logic. I just think it's faulty logic. Chief Jumpscare says, also, did you see the CNN report? I did see this. I'm glad you brought that up. Reporter covering the crowd chanting "Death to America," but they sound almost peaceful in their demeanor. It's it's odd. Yeah, basically you had a CNN reporter over there saying, didn't she actually even use the word friendly at some point? I thought she did. But she was basically saying, it seems almost, as Chief Jumpscare says, almost eerie in the jovial nature of the Taliban members, as literally as they are chanting "Death to America" in the background. I mean, so now you got the administration unwilling to admit they did anything wrong, and then you have the left-leaning media trying to run cover for them, both making complete and total asses of themselves. When people are in the background shouting "Death to America," no, it's not a friendly situation. Mr. Croissant says what Biden has done with Afghanistan is legendary. It will go down as one of the greatest defeats in American history. It's time for Biden to resign in disgrace for what is allowed to happen. Yeah, I saw that Trump said that. Trump is obviously, if nothing else, he's certainly hyperbolic. But everything he said there isn't true. I mean, it is legendary. This is a huge moment in time. It really is, because who knows how this is going to play out going forward, and in no way is it going to play out well for the U.S. and the West, having the Taliban in charge of Afghanistan. Chrome says, no, this is on Biden, LOL. He killed Trump's plan to take credit for ending America's longest war. He knows nothing on foreign policy, on Middle Eastern diplomacy, changing the withdrawal date to this. Yeah. I mean, and the thing of it is, at this point, there's no one to blame but the current administration. It doesn't matter how many different ways they want to slice it up. You made the call. You can't blame it back on Trump. Why? The thing of it is, it doesn't matter what Trump set into, what wheels he set in motion. Biden, and understandably so, they're on polar opposites politically. Biden has undone pretty much everything Trump was doing. Why would he all of a sudden feel tethered to one of Trump's plans? because it went poorly and he doesn't want to get blamed for it. Yeah, it was friendly. That's I thought she'd use that word. Yeah, she used the word friendly about the Taliban fighters as they're in the background chanting "Death to America." Philip says, 2 things I'm seeing in my news feed: the fustercluck that is Afghanistan and the upcoming Canadian election. Fingers crossed we get Trudeau out. We could use some good news right about now. I have to look, Philip. I almost forgot about that with impending. I want to just take a look at the polls. I wonder what it's looking like. And I know the polls are wildly inaccurate worldwide, but I just want to try and get a feel for what they're saying. Sinister Charlie says, I have $5. Why not? I blame Henry Kissinger, not Biden. Goddamn Kissinger. He was a party animal, though, wasn't he? He always seems so bright and upbeat. I like that, HD. He says politician is a different word for politician is a different word for too stupid for a real job. Oh yikes. Misag, did I say that right? Yeah, we live in Iran, have 45 years of experience living under godfathers of Taliban. Wow, it's stunning. It really is. Rosa says, I'll be honest here, I've never wanted to see a country nuked as bad as recently. I kind of sinisterly hope they nuke the Taliban into submission. They say, now by they, I mean news reports you get, and, well, hey, AZN took over Stream Boss. We all know how unreliable any news reports can be. They say there's a significant amount of support for the Taliban in Afghanistan. If that's the case, hey, you're getting what you deserve. Well, I would imagine all that support comes from males. I can't imagine any women supporting it. AZN says, I saw reports of Taliban capturing fully armed and ready fighter planes. They had an Air Force before 2001, too. Won't be long before they have air assets. Oh, this is, I mean, you can't understate how big this is. How big a boo-boo this was. And then, again, as I said, and it just kills me. You send your Secretary of State out there on national TV to look like a complete and utter moron, pretending that this was tactically a good thing. The Ninja Genko says this is worse than a week of yellow dog shit storms. It's bad. Yeah, I mean it for the whole world. How bad a week this was. Social Mute says, I'm with you. I had to say I was truly unsettled when I saw the pictures of the citizens hanging off planes to get out of the country and falling. Had to turn away from TV. I completely understand. That's how horrific it is. Can you imagine being that terrified? Living in a place, and some of you, like Masag here, I'm sure can imagine it. Can you just imagine being so terrified of what's going to happen in the coming days with your government that you would hang on the outside of a plane to try and get the hell out of there? Drew says, what happened? I'm Spanish. Sorry, can anyone tell me? Yeah, Drew, America withdrew their troops out of Afghanistan, just boom, all at once, pulled them back. And in less than a week, the Taliban has taken over Afghanistan all the way through to Kabul, the capital. They are in the capital now. They run the country. So we've seen a major resurgence of potential terrorist activity. And as they're going, they're releasing, of course, all the Taliban prisoners that were locked up. They're releasing all the ISIS prisoners that were locked up. A lot of terrorists are out and about once again now. Chrome says, did you see the thing about Jen Psaki not responding to emails for a week? Fox tried contacting her and they got that response. I'm not surprised, Chrome. And again, in fairness, the Biden administration is not the first administration to do this, and the previous one used to do it too, and as have many others through the years. What is this with presidents hiding when we need them to be front and center. I just, it's amazing to me. The reports are true, Rosa says. There is a significant amount of support for the Taliban. Yeah, I figured it had to be the case. This comes from questions asked in the public in cities that the Taliban already controls. I wonder why all the support. We can only assume, Rosa, it's because a lot of, specifically the male population, approves of Sharia law, and they want women to be not even, I was going to say second-class citizens, but they're not even citizens, to be an afterthought, to be their property, to be their dogs, basically. And some people like having a system of that nature. Mr. Croissant says, I really dislike Trump as a person, and so does my family, but I honestly think he took care of the situations better than Biden. I'm still discovering my place on the spectrum, so I could be wrong, though. If you're wrong, I am too, Mr. Croissant, because I've told you guys this before. I can't stand Trump. I didn't like Trump way before I ran for president. Being a New Yorker, you're familiar with Donald Trump for decades. Always thought he was a complete douchebag. Always thought he was an arrogant douchebag. That opinion has not changed. But again, when I vote for policy, not for personality. So we're very similar in that regard. Philip says, I remember reading a Doonesbury comic strip back in the day. Oh, good old Doonesbury. That joked about the sun shooting down a helicopter. Do the Taliban even have helicopters? The Taliban don't even have socks. That's pretty good. Not so funny now. Yeah. I haven't thought about Doonesbury in so many years, Philip. Wow. Wow, back in the day, back with oh gosh, what was the name of that other strip that I love so much, and now the name has gone completely out of my mind. With Bill the Cat. You'll know what it is, Philip. Oh crap, I can't remember. But Bill the Cat was the character that became most famous from the strip. Bloom County, wasn't it? Bloom County. No, I think it was Bloom County. I believe that was the title. Chrome says, I don't need to personally like a person to think they made a good politician. Correct. I agree. That's why I like Trump. He was actually successful in foreign policy. Yeah. Yeah. Bill Clinton's another good example. I think Bill Clinton as a person is kind of a douche, but I think he was an excellent president. So it goes both ways. Johnny says, well, to be fair, you could have written a novel on all the things Trump got wrong just in the last months of his presidency. Nobody's denying that. I said it right from the top. If Trump didn't have that huge ego, if Trump was willing to admit when he made mistakes, I think he'd still be president. But it's never going to change. It's not going to stop. I'm just very disappointed that we're into another administration that feels the same way when it comes to taking responsibility. Chrome says, I'm not saying it would have been sunshine and roses if left in many under Trump's plan, but we'd at least have the local warlords keeping the Taliban in check. The Afghan government wouldn't be delegitimized. Yeah, this was just so insanely poorly executed. And again, it's a tough, anytime you're dealing with the Middle East, it's a tough situation. But to me, it exacerbates and frustrates and irritates me so much when they're not willing to take ownership of it. AZN says, it is dangerous. There are heavy weapons, tanks, airplanes, attack choppers, also dangerous. Surface-to-air missiles, some shoulder-fired, planes captured. I just don't get it. I mean, how can you do this? And if you're going to leave that stuff behind, there's no way you'll make me believe that the American military commanders on the ground felt confident that the Afghan army could successfully defend all this equipment they were leaving behind. I just don't believe it. And if that's the case, what should have been done was what is typically done in those situations, and it should have all been destroyed if you didn't want the expense of bringing it back home. Everything about it was just fucked up. Dolphin says, I also hate that people attacking you for having mixed feelings towards a politician. I like most of his foreign policies, but disagree with him heavily with most of the problems at home. Right, and I think that's true, Dolphin, with a lot of politicians, if you're fair. But we don't live, we don't live in a time where fair is seen as being reasonable. You have to either be in camp A or camp B. And we see it now. I mean, look at social media. Everybody on the left is scrambling around with ridiculous, moronic ways to try and spin this to where it's not Biden's fault, just like people on the right ridiculously ran around and spun and tried to twist things to make like Trump's initial response to the pandemic, to make that, they tried to spin that to make it look like it wasn't his fault. It's both sides doing the same thing because everybody wants to be on a side. Masag says Afghans' high commands and soldiers surrounded because they lack patriotism and nationalism. Yeah, from what it sounded like, Masag, and I'm sure you would have a better handle on this than do I, but it sounds like they were handcuffed too by the fact that you had such a significant part of the population that welcomes Taliban insurgency. So that you would think that alone would make it very difficult for the Afghan army to have done anything, which they obviously couldn't do anything. The thing about Trump was the prices in a lot of areas went down, and the foreign affairs Trump. Okay, the thing about Trump was the prices in a lot of areas went down, and the foreign affairs Trump failed at the pandemic. Yeah, he did. And the thing of it was, I've said this over and over, and again, that is trying to be fair because both sides do it. If Trump had come out and said, because he did, he blew the messaging at the beginning of the pandemic. Now, if several months in, he'd have come to the American people and said, yep, I was wrong. When I told you that this is going to be a bad flu or a bad cold, I believed it. Obviously, I was incorrect. I also was just trying to keep, I didn't think it was going to be what it is, so I was trying to keep and prevent a panic from taking place. Unfortunately, it's much more severe than I ever imagined, and now we've got to tackle it head on. Had he said that at any point, I think he's still president. But for the same reasons the Biden administration is already trying to deny that they did something wrong here, his ego wouldn't let him do it. It's all about ego. Michael says, my girlfriend in the Philippines liked Trump way more when it came to foreign policy. It seemed like a lot of people internationally did. He stood his ground against China and protected Taiwan and Japan way more than Obama. Filipino president does not like Obama. Yeah, they don't like to talk about that in the mainstream media. Excuse me. But if you go outside of left-leaning leaders in the West and go to other nations, as you're talking about going to the Philippines, areas like that, Trump was rather popular. I mean, there's been several uprisings in nations around the globe where they're carrying American flags as a sign of freedom, and that was while Trump was in command. If Trump said that, the Democrats would have successfully impeached him in that time. Yeah. I mean, and this is, in a nutshell, the issue with everything in America, and we've talked about it here a lot. It's everything's got to be a side. People have lost their minds. You know, you can't, there's so many people now, and again, both sides do it, but now it's on the left. They can't even be willing to accept the fact that this was really handled poorly, really poorly. Instead, they got to try and spin it as being something that it is not. It was a huge, major fuck up that's going to change the course of things on this planet. Philip says, you just have to look at the history of Western interaction with Afghanistan. It's a society of tribes that are constantly at war with one another. You can't form a nation from that. Look at the Balkans. A good point, Philip. It's funny you say that because, again, I readily admit to not being as well-versed internationally as I should be. And I was just reading an article yesterday, day before, that basically said the same thing. Basically put together that same thought process. Yes, and that's just what they said, because it is individual tribes, you can't govern the way you do in traditional governments in the West. Yeah, yep, I just read that. Thanks, Arthur. Excuse me. Mr. Croissant says, I honestly don't see how Biden recovers from this. Like, I've been thinking of potential scenarios they might take, but I don't think he can do anything outside of resigning. then that leaves Kamala. I, I'll tell you, Mr. Croissant, I don't think this forces him to retire, as bad as it is. I think Democrats running in 2022 need to be very, very careful about what they say in regards to all this. Similar to the way Republicans always had to do the tap dance around the landmines that Trump would lay. So are you going to jump on board with Biden and say, no, this wasn't his fault, this was on Trump, or, they did the best they could? Or are you going to be willing to call him out and say, yeah, we screwed that up, and you need to elect me into office because I'll keep people in line to make sure it doesn't happen again, that type of thing. It's all going to depend on how each individual, which way they go with it. You could be right. I mean, see, I think for a time, there were a significant number of Democrats who would like to see Biden out so Kamala could go into office. But now you got the Democrats panicked because Kamala has historically bad poll numbers. She has some of the worst poll numbers in the history of vice presidential polling. People do not like her. So now if you're a Democrat, what do you do? Because Biden, his poll numbers are significantly better than Kamala's. So now where does that leave you? Chief Drumsker says, trying to find a silver lining. Maybe this will be a terrible start, but a start to America becoming an isolationist nation like we were prior to World War II. Yeah, Jumpscare. I mean, you're right. You have no idea what this is going to do. It's the destabilization in that region now just went into hyperdrive. The terrorist threat level, I know, was raised here in America already, just from things that have been, what's taken place and things that are being said. It's already having worldwide impact. Philip says the only thing the Afghan Pashtun tribes can agree on is resisting foreign rule. Otherwise, they're content to herd their sheep and goats and kill each other in century-old feuds. That's interesting, Philip. That's, like I said, that's right in line with what I was just reading. It's very, and it's by nature of how things have progressed and developed there, but very, very backwoodsy Afghanistan. As Philip says, it's a bunch of very poor, uneducated farmers who only know tribalism, and that makes everything all the more complicated. Chrome says, why would the Afghan military and people support a government they think is a puppet regime for America? It's not about supporting the Taliban. They'll just support anyone who's not America. That could be part of it too, Chrome. I think there are some people, from what I've been reading, some people who do just support the Taliban because, again, they like the Sharia law. So I think there's some of that, but I'm sure what you're saying is true as well. Arthur says, we need to mind our own business. We get hate for doing anything. Let Taliban threaten Europe and force them to do something, then call them colonists. Yeah, you're right, Arthur. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. But now, the cat's out of the bag now. Afghanistan's gone. Afghanistan's a done deal. We're not going to send in the forces necessary to defeat the Taliban. So now we deal with having a terrorist organization running a major nation in the Middle East and the influence that they're going to have throughout. And we know the means they use to expand their influence. Oh, no, I didn't hear about this, Diavolo. Have you heard about what happened in Tunisia? The president kicked all the parliament members and people with power, and they will get sued for corruption. They are corrupt, by the way. Really? No, I hadn't heard that. Again, that's the problem, Diavolo. To get any decent world news here in America, you have to dig so deep, because if it's not entertainment related, Orange Man Bad related, something along those lines, American media doesn't cover it. Mainstream American media is the worst for thinking that the whole world resides within the borders of the United States. Masad says, anti-American propaganda is all coming from Iran regime and Taliban itself. I believe that. I think I saw these. I'll look at it, Chrome. I think I saw the same one you're showing me. She says, some of the pics between Kabul and Saigon look damn near identical. If you guys haven't seen this, click on Chrome's link here. I believe these are the ones I already saw. Yes, that's exactly it. It's frightening. It is the exact same situation. Jesus Christ. Wow. Wow. That's that's actually chilling to look at, isn't it? I mean, it really is. It's frightening to see. Let's see. Lick says the country's government is corrupt and the sky is also blue. Sad but true, Licks. Sad but true. Sticky Sauce says, still believe it wasn't for the fact anarchy in practice is so dangerous. We'd be better without governments. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying, Sticky Sauce. I know what you mean. If it weren't for the fact that we'd just turn into a nation of warlords and right and anarchy, as you said, but it just how is it possible to govern on a large national scale throughout the world without corruption, without significant corruption? I don't think so. I don't think it's possible. That's disheartening, but we have nothing. We certainly have no case studies that would prove otherwise. Arthur says, nobody has any appreciation for us trying to protect them from the Taliban, so screw them, let them deal with them. Then we turn the tables and call them imperialists when they do anything about it. It does make you almost feel like that at times, doesn't it? It gets frustrating. Lick says, so Curtis, did you see that guy who thinks they should not only withdraw all troops, but also provide free passage to any Afghan allies who want to leave the country? Should not only withdraw... Wow. I mean, it's one thing for those who were working alongside the Americans because they would be targeted. But what are you going to do with those mass numbers of people? Yeah, that would that wouldn't be a problem at all. Let me see where I am here. Zurzel says, angry two-parter below. Okay, Zurzel. Sir Blank says, I'm from Namek where the sky is green. What are you talking about? Zurzel says, I'm so beyond enraged at this. People trying hard to defend Biden saying, how could Biden have known this would happen? And it's like Obama mentioned this would happen if they did a mass withdrawal. Yeah, and I mean, just regular folks on social media all over the place. Look at postings from last week. Said this is what's going to happen. There had to be some people in Biden's ear saying, hey, listen, you never know for sure what's going to take place, but here's one of the possible scenarios. And the worst case scenario did happen. If he can say that he honestly didn't know that this was a possibility, then he needs to fire his entire staff and get new. Zurzel says, and had to play it smart. Seriously, how can people defend us leaving so many to die? We have garrisons with tens of thousands of troops all over the world and couldn't spare some to do this properly. Right, and as we were talking about earlier, Zurzel, secure everyone before you don't take the troops out first, then go diving back in to try and save people. You secure everyone first, then withdraw the troops. And you got a Secretary of State going, no, we did it right. No, we did the right thing. This shows that we're Johnny on the spot. We were prepared. Excuse me. Arthur says, libertarianism, not anarchy. Governments need to be as localized as possible. Only federal laws should be those that directly protect life and freedom. Well, you know how I stand on that, Arthur. I don't know that I go as far as classic libertarians, but yes, in principle I agree with that. I agree the country operates much better when as much decision making as possible is passed down to states and localities. It allows people to live the lives they want to live. And you would also be getting people interested in local elections, which as of right now is just, there's no interest in it. Oh, let's see. Sticky Sauce says, fighting against Islamist terrorism is a war you can't win because Islamists want the world to end. They believe killing off humanity is their religious duty, so you cannot win against them. No, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, and I respect that. And I certainly hope it doesn't happen, because I don't want this to be something that my children or grandchildren face. But if there is that big showdown of the West versus the radical Islamists, yeah, I hope that doesn't happen. Philip says, really makes Biden's "you can't fight nukes and fighter jets with AKs" comment look very ridiculous in hindsight, don't it? It does. I didn't think about that. History has a sense of irony. It really does, Philip. I hadn't even thought about that, and you're 100% right. Yeah. Yes, that makes it look really, really bad. I didn't even think about that. Chrome said, so did you see that Biden's stupid vanity pic of him totes being in full control of the Afghan situation accidentally leaked the identities of our allies in Afghan? I didn't even see that. Oh, yeah. PJB says the U.S.'s hyper-capitalism BS has just made the rich richer and the poor poorer. It's only a matter of time before the proletariat gets tired of starving. No, it isn't. You won't see any type of rising up of the proletariat in America, because it's not. Did the rich get richer? Yes. Did the poor get poorer? Depends on what standards you use. However, capitalism is still, as far as I'm concerned, easily the best system. It just needs, like any other system would, it needs to have the corruption weeded out of it, and it needs to be handled the way that it's supposed to be handled. It's the politicians who have allowed the negative side of capitalism to take effect with the ridiculous amount of tax breaks, so on and so forth, to major corporations. But no, you're not going to see an uprising in America. Rosa said, I'll trigger Americans by saying this, but we're not the best. We're not close to the best. We were the best in 1960. That's 60 years ago. We'll never be the best again if we can't admit we aren't the best. That doesn't trigger me. I think I just never really got one way or the other saying we are the best, we aren't the best. I never got too much into that debate, because it's all conjecture, and it's all, what you're basing the word best on, and what is most important to you in your life would be how you would judge it. So to everybody, best or worst is going to be entirely subjective. But to say that we're best across the board, put it this way, I don't want to live in any other country. So in that case, I could say it's the best. But there are plenty of things I think this country does dramatically wrong and others do better. But it would be in pieces. Maybe the UK does better at X than do we, and Japan does better at Y than do we. You know what I'm saying? So I never really got too much into that. America the best, America the worst, whatever the case may be. Let's see. Normal Gamer says, did you react to the ERBA of Ragnar Lodbrok versus Richard Lionheart? No, just because I know who both of the individuals are, but do not have enough knowledge that I think I would make an interesting reaction video. And I'm not going to make reaction videos to certain content just because they do well. They get good views. If I don't think I have something interesting to add in the reaction, then I'm not going to make the vid. Arthur says, no one suggests capitalism is flawless. It's just best. That's where I am, Arthur. Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's flawless at all, but I do think it's the best system. Yes. Zerzul says, Chinese officials talked on moving into colonized Afghani lands now and not being afraid of the Taliban. Maybe they'll kill each other off. That would be interesting. Ooh. Yeah, I don't think China wants to get involved, and just for the same. How long has Afghanistan been at war with, fill in the blank, with whatever nation? I don't think China wants to step in that thick soup, but that would be pretty interesting. Nacho says capitalism is fine. Corporate-based capitalism needs to be shot or at least neutered, and I don't disagree with you, Nacho. And I think that's where our failing is. And as far as corporations within capitalism, the vet that's supposed to be doing the neutering is the government, and they're not. They have not taken out the tools for cutting off any balls in a long time. They just keep letting the wild hogs run free. That's the issue in a nutshell. Like I say, I think capitalism is an excellent form of governance, but like anything else, if it's corrupted, if it's not handled the way that it is designed to be handled, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. PJB says having the largest population living under it does not make it best. I don't know who you're responding to, PJB. I don't know why anyone would think that numbers make you the best. That doesn't even make sense. Chief Jumpscare says China and U.S. versus Afghanistan. If China forgives a sizable portion of our debt, yeah, like all of it. Sticky Sauce says Twitter activists are finally being kicked out of places and treated as scum, which is a good thing. Really, I hadn't heard about these details. Really? Okay. No, I'm on board. Chrome says one of my favorite lines from the whole situation. Hold on, let me click that link, see what it is. Oh, yeah. Well, this is what I had alluded to earlier about Biden with his quotes. There's going to be no circumstance you see people being lifted off the roof of an embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. Well, isn't this a bruh moment? Yeah, isn't it indeed? And this is why it's going to be days until he addresses the nation. They're trying desperately to figure out a way to spin this. Lick says, capitalism is good because it's so malleable. Even the poorest of wage slaves can make a quick fortune with the right circumstances. That's true, which is why suits trying to control and nullify it is a bad thing. No, that's true. And again, that's where I've always said it's up to government to keep that playing field level to give everybody equal opportunity, and that's where it falls down. Because capitalism, without proper governmental oversight, like any other system, sucks. It's going to be taken advantage of, and that's exactly what's happening. It almost sounds like they planned this out to make one big joke, Rosa says. Leader of the Lost Souls, y'all still don't answer shit? Got to know what the question is before we can answer it, Leader of the Lost Souls. Arthur says, next post, please. All economic forms of government, capitalistic, communistic, whatever, falls apart when it gets too big. That's been the case, yeah, historically. It's important to keep government as local as possible. Even communism can succeed in small groups. Well, and again, you're preaching to the choir there. I've said that for some time, that and it's partially our fault as citizens. Whenever we want change or we want something, it's immediately run to the federal government, when a lot of times those changes can be made on a local level, whether it's minimum wage or whatever the case may be. We should be looking more and more to govern ourselves on state and local levels and rely less on the Fed. The Fed should just be, as I've said, should be the overseer and the referee trying to keep things fair, but that's not how it works. AZN says, I was 7 years old when the towers fell. There was going to be a kids' party that day. Cake and ice cream? Teacher cried she could barely cut the cake. Was sad. Oh, that's... Yeah, I don't. That actually hits me in the chest. Yeah, I that's very sad. Oh, leader says I was talking. Capitalism isn't the best, people, Curtis. Yeah, and I mean, I can respect somebody having a different opinion, but nobody will ever convince me otherwise. I believe capitalism is the best system, but as always, and that's true with any system, it needs to be handled properly, and ours is not. Ours is. I mean, you're letting the fox have run of the chicken coop here. When you keep giving more and more breaks to the major corporations, it's much more the corporations than it is the rich individuals. To the major corporations, that's when capitalism starts to not fall apart, but stop working for everyone. All that sad. Sir Blank says, I was in kindergarten and I saw my teacher start to cry and stop teaching. That stuff is really, really sad. PJB says the government is in cahoots with the corporations to ensure the poor continue to be exploited. I don't think they're in cahoots to ensure it. I think that's a byproduct of the corporations having too much monetary influence in our government. So I don't think it's as dire as you say, but we're not necessarily in disagreement. People get paid less and less for their work. Rent continues to go up, and the richest 0.01% pay no tax. Now, that's not true. If you look at the numbers as to what the 1% and above pay in taxes as per the total tax intake of the government, that's not true. I think it's very important that we concentrate on the corporations. Can the rich pay more? That depends on your perspective, whether they can, whether they should, whatever. But they do pay a significant number of income taxes. They pay a significant number of taxes back into the system. Corporations do not. And that's what really has to be. Again, you guys have heard me use the whole, because I'm a fat guy, use the old cinnamon bun thing all the time. If you're going to put a little frosting on top, it has to be just enough so that it gets warm, heats up, and spreads all the way down the bottom. When you just keep heaping frosting on, a lot of it stays at the top, and only the people at the top get to enjoy it. Zerzul says, context post below. Where is there? There. My father and I were supposed to be at Twin Towers on vacation for 9/11. Whoa. But decided to stay home and relax. He has the itinerary showing that they were supposed to visit the trade towers. That's freaking creepy. Holy crap. Whoa. That'll set you back. Chimeriuri says, I had started college the day the towers fell. My grandmother was freaking out, told my grandfather to get his boat and pick me up. Glad he didn't, because they would have probably blown him out of the water. Yeah, really. Wow. It's just, I remember watching. I was working on the back of a garbage truck, and it was our short day, so we didn't even have much left at 9 something whenever it was all taking place. And I still remember we're on one street in Amsterdam where I worked, and a lady came out of her house and says, did you boys just hear about the Twin Towers? And at the time it had just been the one. We said, no, what's going on? She said, somebody just flew a plane into them. And we said, on purpose, or was it an accident? And she didn't know it. She said, we have no idea at this time. She said, we're hoping it's an accident. And that's where I was. Let's see. PJB says, if the workers own the means of production, we would not have to worry about the massive wealth hoarding that we currently see. Free trade can still occur within social... No, could not disagree more. Workers do not deserve to own the means of production. You have a much better system in place when individuals can go out in a free market, because free markets are what promote ingenuity. They promote advancement. There's nothing wrong with people getting rich in the free market. Absolutely nothing wrong with it whatsoever. I always want to have a free market as impetus for people to create better products, come up with better ideas, keep everything moving forward, everything always advancing. Because you work for someone does not mean you should own the means of that production. Now, if you want to make rules for corporations regarding what has to be paid as far as wages and stuff, that's again where that's why government is supposed to be the overseer of everything that is fair. But then you'll get people that are extremists on the other end. It's not, in any situation, it's not reasonable to say that every job in an economy should pay a fully living wage to where you can have one job, a house, a car, your cell phone, and everything else you want. It's just not. The math doesn't work out. So no, there is no way, there will never be any way that I think a system that asks you to give more of your money to the government than is absolutely necessary and allow them to redistribute it back to you will be superior. Nothing will ever make me believe that. There's been nothing I've ever seen that would indicate that a government can do that effectively. I would much rather keep money in my own pocket and make my own buying decisions. Arthur says, next post. Whoop. America's problems have to do with restricted civil liberties, which contribute to monopolies. Capitalism's only flaw. Japan is a great example of how successful capitalism can be when people are free. Yeah. Restricted civil liberties, somewhat. Yeah, I don't think that's entirely wrong what you're saying, Arthur. We don't agree down the line, but there's elements of that I would agree with. Masag says, if I were a ruler, most of the budget goes to education and military. These are important things in a national state. Well, and that's the thing, too, with, for better or for worse, with the position that America is now in on the world stage, we have no other option than to have an extremely robust military budget, or we'd be seeing things that that are even more concerning and more potentially deadly than what's going on in Afghanistan. Or let me put it this way. If we didn't have that robust military, what's going on in Afghanistan would be even more of a direct and dire threat to us. PJB says people should at least be paid for the total value of their labor, which most certainly does not occur. What is this about the government redistributing money? I did not mention that. No, because what I'm telling you is, and first of all, the total value of their labor is entirely subjective. Entirely. You can't even have a real give and take on that because it all depends on what you think the total value of their labor is. Do I think there's a huge amount of labor value in somebody that's in an entry-level job in fast food as opposed to somebody that's working as a medical professional? No. No, and I think the wages should reflect that. Those are entry-level jobs that you work at to try and work your way up the ladder. I didn't say you said anything about redistributing money. I said any system, and that includes socialism, that encourages the concept of giving more of your money to the government to be redistributed, whether it's in healthcare or education or whatever it may be, that encourages everyone to pay into this giant pool so the government can then handle it for you. I do not think that is ever the best situation. Chrome says, if you make big corporations pay more taxes, you're just going to make the government more reliant on them. You need to get rid of the regulations that squash their competition, make them monopolies. Yeah? Yep. If someone produces an amount of value for their employer and they do not get paid for it, is what's called exploitation of labor. That exploitation is tremendously high today. PJB, you're not talking about hard number things. How do you, in your view, you may believe that what that person, again, let's working at that fast food joint, the value of their labor is X. Somebody else may believe it's Y. That's totally subjective. You can't make hard and fast numbers on it because it's not quantitative. How do you determine exactly what amount of value they are providing for the employer? I mean, there are some situations where you might be able to draw some numbers that make sense, but very few in an actual working marketplace. David Carter says, and getting paid $30 million a year for hitting a fucking baseball. Why is that a bad thing? This is always been an interesting topic for me. You realize that the only way that player gets paid, that person gets paid that much for hitting a baseball, is because the other members of their own society, Americans, are paying huge amounts of money to see him hit that baseball. So who should get that money? That's an issue. Who should get that money? The money's there because it's paid in ticket sales, it's paid in TV revenue, hugely paid in merchandise sales. So if that player shouldn't get $30 million a year for hitting that baseball, who do you suggest that money goes to? Because that money is earned. It's what we as Americans are deciding to spend our money on. The money that we earned, we're working it back through the market through buying that jersey. Cheap Jump Scare says, check last post, please. Reject capitalism, embrace dictatorship under my rule. I will share the dankest memes. Now there's a plus. Ban all Karens, personally execute convicted pedos. You're getting me on board. And promise no rights across the board. True equality. I I would agree with you on that, cheap jump scare. If nobody has any rights, that is true equality. Everyone is equal. Okay, guys, I might be joining cheap jump scares movement, just so you guys know. Arthur says communism always ends in revolt. Ask Cuba. Yeah, historically, I don't know of any communist state. Excuse me. Well, you can't say because there are communist states currently in China, but communism does not have a strong track record of not ending in revolt. You are correct. The socialists are coming and says, for everyone, info on taxes. The top 1% of income workers account for 40% of the government's tax income. There you go. Top 10% account for 80%. Almost everyone else makes more from welfare than spending taxes. See, so socialists are coming is correct. I didn't know the exact numbers, but that's why I say I think it's misguided when we really start hammering on looking to get rich people to pay more taxes. We need corporations. They're the ones who are getting all the gravy. They're the ones who are getting away with basically murder within the system, not the individuals. Excuse me. Rosa says, Curtis, I was a socialist at some point. They're too stupid to attempt to convince. They suffer from the severe Dunning-Kruger effect. Well, like I say, any system of government that is based upon that, taking huge amounts of your earned dollars so they can redistribute it for you, it loses me. I don't think it's ever going to be a good idea. And Edgar, hey Edgar, good to see you, pal. If you don't like your worth of labor at your job, go start your own business or side hustle, make your own worth. 100% correct. And no matter how much people would like to tell you, well, not everybody can do that. Yeah, you can. In America, you still can. You have to have a good idea. You have to have something in mind that either no one else has thought of before, or that you can do better than anyone else. But you're 100% right. You can make your own wealth. David Carter says, I'd rather give that money to those who really work for it and risk their health than an athlete, but that's just me. Ooh. That's quite the statement. So what David's saying, he's talking about a Major League ball player saying it gets $30 million a year. So what David's saying is this baseball team is bringing in huge amounts of money because people pack the stadiums, they buy the merchandise, they watch them on TV. The people willingly put that money into the system, into that baseball team, because that's what they enjoy. And David's saying that money should then be taken away from them and redistributed to people who have nothing to do with it. I don't think you're going to get a lot of people on board with you there, David. I know I'm completely not on board with you. So people that had nothing to do with bringing that baseball team and that baseball player to a position of prominence where people wanted to pay big money, wanted to pay $150 just to wear his jersey, and you think they should take that money and give it to somebody else. I wonder what that sounds like. Let's see. So the people protecting them doesn't matter? What are you talking about? What people protecting them? The people protecting the baseball? You mean the reason that they pay income taxes that we just went through and said what the tax rate was, or what percentage the top 1% pay in taxes? That's how they pay the people protecting them. Who are you talking about? Oh, by the way, Biden's giving a speech soon. Finally, because they said within the next few days. Oh, I'll be anxious to see this. Excuse me. Yeah, that's good point, Chrome. Hell, we saw with the whole GameStop situation, even the dumbest among us Redditors can make a mint off the system. You're right. You're correct. The fact that there is a labor shortage, which really should be called a wage shortage, is evidence that people, on average, are being drastically underpaid. Wages have not kept with inflation. Or it could also, if you look at where it's taking place, it could also be because, once again, government has stepped in and started paying out so much in extra unemployment benefits that people don't want to go back to work. They're willing to take that, even if it's a little less than they make at their job, and do nothing. that could also have an awful lot to do with it, because we know personally, I know people who are paying, and we live in one of the most, Fulton and Montgomery counties in New York are two of the more economically depressed counties in the nation. And I know people who are paying really good wages by our standards. I mean, more than enough for you to live on one job, one 40-hour-a-week job, and get by just fine, and they can't get employees. AZN says, when the war started, I remember people all interested. Recruitment shot up. Me and my cousins bought toy guns and stuff. War movies. We met a soldier serving in class. Those wars have affected country. True. That's been true, I believe, every time the U.S. has entered into a situation militarily. Zurzel says, apes together strong. I made money off GME. I did okay on yeah, I'm done making money off it, so now I forgot the name of it. The cryptocurrency there. Dogecoin. I made a nice little profit on that. I mean, by my standards. I think it was, when all was said and done, the pluses and minuses added up, I think I got like $1,200 out of it. To me, that's a lot of money. Let's see. Dogecoin, yes. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Yeah, I did okay on that. And then, just because I don't have any insight into any of the machinations of how those things work, but you could see what was going on. So it was cheaper than shit. So I bought a couple $100 worth of it early on. And with all the buzz it was getting on social media, I figured it's got to go up at least a little. And so I put $200 into it. That had risen to like 7 or so. So then I took some of that and I put a little more in it. But when all was said and done, I had made $1,200 in profit. David says, so what you're telling me is the life of a bodyguard who gets paid $50,000 a year to risk life and limb is less than a person who gets paid $100 million a year for sitting behind a desk. Okay, what? What the fuck? What the fuck? Where did we go? First of all, I thought we were talking about athletes. Now we're talking about a bodyguard who gets paid $50,000 a year to risk life and limb is less than a person. Did the bodyguard not accept that rate? If he doesn't, why is he working as a bodyguard if he doesn't think he's getting paid enough to do bodyguard work? And the person making $100 million a year sitting behind a desk, what is he doing? He's obviously must have had a really good idea someplace down the line, right? Didn't he create something that the market wants? I don't think you're making the point that apparently in there somewhere you think you're making, David. So you're thinking a bodyguard should get a couple mil a year? Nobody'd hire bodyguards. You get paid what your labor is worth what somebody's willing to pay you for, specifically in a field like that. If somebody's willing to say, hey, to have somebody watching my back, I'll pay them $50,000 a year. And they say, well, no, I'll only do it for $200. They'll say, well, then I won't have anybody watching my back. I'll just go get a pistol permit and I'll do the best, or a concealed carry permit and I'll do the best I can. Pretty simple. Arthur says, ooh, I'm good at crypto. Let me coach you. Nah, I jumped out of all of it now, Arthur. I got rid of everything. I was like, you know what? I'm happy with that. I made that good little bit of money. I'm out. Trevor says, I feel my brain cells popping. Jay says, bodyguards always sell their life cheaper than the guy paying them. True, but like I say, that specifically going to something like bodyguard, you got X value. Your value is whatever the person paying you feels you are worth in protecting their life, period. I mean, if you say that bodyguard is worth $500,000 a year, that's fine. You can say that all you want. Good luck finding somebody to pay you that much. Nobody has to pay a bodyguard. I missed the super chat? Oh, sorry, Mr. Croissant. Let me find that. Oh, shit. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Croissant Phillips. I could do a side hustle, but if I'm honest, I'm too lazy, nowhere near creative enough to have one. But I'm smart enough to recognize that's my own damn fault, nobody else's. Yeah, and it's funny you say it though. I thought that down the line too. I've had ideas in the past for, like you say, a good side hustle or something that I was like, it seems like a lot of work though, and I'm not going to do it. Now I've seen other people come along and do the exact same thing I was thinking of, and do very, very well. That's on me. Can't blame anybody for that. 3:45 is when this speech. Oh, cool. Oh, the Pelosi statement. I believe I saw that, unless it's something new. The president's to be commended for the clarity of purpose. Yeah, I can't even reread that again, Chrome. It's again is to be commended. The president is to be commended for what he did in Afghanistan. It's just stuns you. It really is. They're all willing to admit to being complete, utter fucking morons rather than just admit we did something wrong and now we got to fix it. Kaiser says, George Carlin. Oh, George Carlin's so great. I believe we have unlimited rights. I have the right to do what I want, but you also have the right to kill me. George Carlin had a true equality in a demented way. George Carlin, he was great. Rob says, coming from a college baseball background making $0, I applaud them who are able to go to the next level, and they deserve the pay they do because we can't. Common sense. Couldn't agree with you more, Rob. You guys know that. I ripped my hamstring to shreds last year playing in an over 55 league just because I wanted to play baseball. If somebody is able to play that game that I love and play it at that level, I want to watch them do it. And I'm willing to pay for a ticket. I did. What was it? Last year we go, or 2019? It was last year. We went to it was 2019. We went to the a weekend series, Pirates and Cardinals. I would pay my money to watch that. I would pay my money to wear one of their jerseys because I admire them for being able to play a game I love and do it at that high level. That's a decision we all make. And if everybody all of a sudden decided, nah, I don't care if they play baseball anymore, that guy ain't getting $30 million a year. He's out of a job. But as long as we like watching him play, he's earning it. Chief Jump Scare says, next post, please. Dan says, we either have unlimited rights or no rights, from George Carlin. Yeah, I was such a huge Carlin fan. Chief Jump Scare says, I thought of opening a business once, but I'm also dumb enough to think York patties should be peppermint flavored for Christmas, like they weren't peppermint flavored all the time. We all have those moments, Chief Jump Scare. Every one of us has those moments. All right, guys, I gotta go. This was a great conversation. Thank you all so much. Whether agreed, disagreed, or whatever, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. And again, I can't make this any more clearer. It's both sides. I'm just stunned and disgusted by how nobody in our government at high levels will ever take ownership of a mistake. The ego is just so ridiculous. Philip says, if I was making that kind of money where I needed a bodyguard, I'd pay him $100,000 and give him a damn good health insurance plan, pension too. Right, that's what I mean, Philip. And it all comes down to what somebody's willing to pay you. That's why the bodyguard one, I don't think was a good example for him at all, because that's one where it's cut and dried. You don't need a bodyguard. If you want one, what he gets paid is what he's worth. You know, what that person who's paying him believes his own life is worth. So I don't think that was a good a good profession to use to try and make the point he was trying to make. But guys, thank you so much again. This was a great stream. As this unfolds, I'm sure we'll be talking about it more. We'll do another COVID chat, hopefully this week, maybe next, because I know everybody seems to just enjoy exchanging information about that, seeing what everybody's thinking about that, where we are, predicting where we're going and everything. But thank you guys for the stream. This was a blast. It's Monday, but this stream was invigorating. So this sticky stuff is going to be pretty good quality for a Monday. It's going to be it's going to be I take no blame infused sticky stuff. This sticky stuff, whatever it does to you, it's not to blame for it. There's a spin. Dylan says, all of this makes my friends and all the rest who deployed with us look like such fools. This is so demoralizing for us in the military. I was reading that, Dylan, and it's true. I get that. A lot of the military members who have been over in Afghanistan and knew what they were doing there and knew what they were protecting there, fuck off, chain. It's got to be demoralizing to see it all just undone. I completely understand that, Dylan. It's terrible. It really is. I mean, men and women were over there working for a long time to keep that region stable, and now it's all over. It's all gone. All right, guys. But thank you again and again. The sticky stuff, in honor of our politicians, takes no responsibility for what it does to you. So you're on your own with this batch. Pampu pampu. Sticky stuff for you, sticky stuff for you, sticky stuff for you, sticky stuff for you. Whatever it does, it's not responsible. There's a reason. There's a spin as to why sticky stuff for you, it's not responsible at all. Because we'll bang, okay? Flashily, like Buggy. And as always, most importantly, and it always takes responsibility for everything. Goosh, 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 goosh. Goosh.